Every once in a while I sit down with myself asking,
was Hermione sorted into the right house? Like, seriously, this is a question that comes up now and then, but not just in Hermione, but in just about every main character, ever since this scene here.
Not Slytherin, eh? Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness. There's no doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor!
And finding out that other characters face a similar issue of possibly being sorted into a different house, it sort of spawned this idea of resorting not just the character, but even people who take the Pottermore sorting quiz. Like, if you don't get the house you want, you'll either begrudgingly accept it and possibly rethink yourself, or you'll just say screw it, start another account, and try again. I think it comes down to just how straightforward the houses seem on the surface, as well as how these traits are presented in the books and films. In the series, we really only spend time with Gryffindors and Slytherins. We see a lot of them. And with Gryffindor essentially being the good guys and Slytherins being the worst people until this one showed up. And then it turned out she was a Slytherin too, and we didn't really get a good one until this guy. And I like this guy. If you look at Harry Potter characters, you would find what appears to be a surprising lack of nuance on the surface, but if you get a bit deeper, you'll see the nuances of the houses. So Peter Pettigrew has a lot of courage. Like, he really does. It takes a lot of courage to betray everyone to save your own skin, and the Sorting Hat did consider him for Slytherin at one point. People legit to this day still have a back and forth on Snape, with some saying that he's the only real Slytherin, while some saying that he was always a Gryffindor. And Neville, Flitwick, McGonagall, and Lockhart were considered for different houses by the Sorting Hat. Now, when it comes to Hermione, there's always the default. She actually belongs to Ravenclaw because Hermione loves knowledge, learning, is considered the brightest witch of her age, and the Sorting Hat itself considered Ravenclaw. But on the other hand, the other side of that argument seems to be that she belonged in Slytherin, as some of her actions showed a certain cunning and ruthlessness, like keeping Rita Skeeter in a jar, having secret meetings, and a certain pragmatic ruthlessness to her, but also in regards to her pursuit of knowledge, what she knows she often has a use for. That certain utilitarian approach isn't very Ravenclaw, who always feels like they'd sort of know random stuff because it interests them, but of course, general interest is why she took Muggle studies in Prisoner of Azkaban. This is even more true with how popular and almost how polarizing Hermione is as a character. At least for me, it feels like the character gets a bit too much love from fans, especially in the films. And you know what? I'm kind of tired of it. Like, I've been here for the Dumbledore slander, loved it. The Snape slander, totally my coffee in the morning. Even the little bits of Ron, Harry, Lupin, Sirius slander, everyone gets a turn at it, except for 4 people who get no slander, and that's Neville, Hagrid, Luna, and McGonagall. We're not debating this, they are the purest sunlights in the series, and we must protect them at all costs. So the question of this video is, was Hermione sorted into the right house? And the answer to me is a resounding yes. This is because of what we can view as sort of Gryffindor's negative traits. With Slytherin, for example, the negative trait could be their resistance to change, Ravenclaw, their isolation tendencies, but with Gryffindor, the negative trait to me is self-righteousness. The idea that one is morally right and that really is Hermione. So when Hermione says this...
Now, if you two don't mind, I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed. Or worse, expelled.
It's kind of the last and only time she really seems to care about it, because Hermione is all about breaking rules when she believes it's the right thing to do, which sounds good. I mean, it does, doesn't it? After all, you could argue that's what Harry does when he goes after Malfoy on the broom in Book 1, and that pretty much is a standard for heroes. But on the negative side, you could go with that sort of self-righteous attitude, the idea that I should be able to do this because I think it's the right thing to do, is sort of in, I believe it was Book 6, when Harry sneaks in to spy on Malfoy on the Hogwarts Express and then gets the snot beat out of him. Great scene, by the way. Great scene, by the way. I disagree. I think it's a great test. I think it's a bad testament to friendship that Ron didn't laugh at Malfoy for that. But anyway. With Hermione, this sort of happens in at least every book, but it's always framed as the right thing. Sneaking into the restricted section of the library in Philosopher's Stone, Hermione. Polyjuice Potion to sneak in the Slytherin dorm room, Hermione. Chamber of Secrets. Time travel, Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione. Going behind Harry's back to tell McGonagall about the firebolt, Hermione. Keeping Rita Skeeter in a jar for days, Hermione. And of course, Dumbledore's army, also Hermione. Now, holding Rita Skeeter hostage sounds like a Slytherin moment, but consider what she wants Skeeter to do. Not print a retraction, but stop writing about her, and then, of course, interview Harry later on in the books, but that's kind of it. For Hermione and other Gryffindors, the rules can and must be broken if serving a greater, if not higher, purpose. And that can be good, but again, it's they who determine when that happens. In other words, it's alright if I break the rules because I believe it's serving a greater goal. And from the Slytherin perspective, the greater goal is oneself. At the same time, there are moments when she's portrayed as being the one in the right, but she really isn't or is exonerated one way or another. A good example is Scabbers and his apparent death at the hands of Crookshanks. Now, this has been an ongoing thing in the entire book, with Hermione and Ron going back and forth about the cat attacking Scabbers, to which Hermione brushes off, saying it won't happen, and that Ron just need to keep a better eye on his rat, and when it appears that it did happen, she won't apologize, and then she doesn't have to because it turns out Scabbers was a bigger rat than we all thought. Then, of course, comes the house elf idea, the house elf liberation, later called Spew, which was... Now, this was cut from the film because, well, it kind of goes nowhere, and this is classic positive and negative Gryffindor. So Hermione sees a problem in how house elves are treated and wants to change it, which is perfectly noble and admirable. But her response isn't to study up on it so much as lecture to house elves what they should be doing, like, this is what you deserve. Hermione sees a problem and takes the approach of, these poor uneducated slaves, I must help them. And to the book's credit, this is, in its own way, an interesting way to see how something should and shouldn't be handled, and also to Hermione's character. When she sees something wrong, her first response is not to really study up on it, but to fix it. And even more so that she has to fix it. She has to be the one to break these rules, to shake things up. And the problem is, she's putting the morality of the issue before the actual issue itself. In other words, how does one change an age-old system? One doesn't just... In this concept, Hermione is effectively convincing a bunch of people who don't see a problem to revolt. Alright, and sure, it sounds right, but what happens then? In the context of the book, Hermione's already seen what happens to house elves who are released from service or have nothing else to do. They spiral out of control. The psychological damage, at best, has already been done. I compared this to a scene in Downton Abbey when Matthew sort of makes a offhand remark about how silly Mosley's job is, and Mosley seems a bit offended, he seems a bit insulted. And Robert calls him out for it, like, everyone has to do their jobs, and these sort of people in service, they take pride in their job no matter how monotonous or meaningless it seems to us. In other words, you have to work this job from the ground up, not just tell a bunch of people, hey, stop doing this. It's not how it works. Anyway, on another note, this also led to some people in the fandom admitting that Hermione sounds a bit white here. She reads a bit white, which to me was the dumbest line I'd ever heard concerning Hermione, because Hermione is white. I'm sorry. I know the Hermione's black crowd is still going strong, because it can't just be headcanon. It has to be, this is what was intended. It's really only because of this play. And why? Because J.K. Rowling didn't just say roles in theater are allowed to be played by anybody as long as they have the acting talent. That's it. Instead, she had to go, I don't ever recall saying Hermione was white. This is called a cop-out, because she didn't just say Hermione was black. No. She decided to play it safe and decided to let the fan base defend her for her. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. So anyway, that's my long story short, short story long. Hermione is always and will always be a Gryffindor because she's self-righteous as all get out. So thanks for coming to my Not TED Talk. What'd you think? Was this a...
But I think it is clear that we can expect great things from you.
Or was it more of a...
Once again, you put your keen and penetrating mind to the task, and as usual, come to the wrong conclusion.
Let me know in the comment section, check out some other videos, and I'll catch you all later. This is Debugger Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and as always, may your